And I am excited about this topic. I am interested in how it's going to go. I am interested in seeing what thus saith the chat tonight, seeing what they're going to say, what type of questions they're going to have. And I just want to invite the chat tonight. We're going to be talking about 5 questions to ask before choosing your life partner. You know, when when you choose your life partner, that's a big deal. Some of us up here have been married before, and we can tell you from personal experience that sometimes if you don't have some of these conversations before the marriage or early in the marriage, that you can find out things later on down the road. Sometimes, when we were young, I would just be a little honest that I didn't really know. I didn't get the conversation about this is what you are supposed to look for in a wife. This is how you are supposed to maintain yourself as a husband. This is how you're supposed to act. I saw things on TV. I saw the Huxtables, you know what I mean? I saw, different, people on TV talking about, what marriage was. And, we went to church, different things like that. But here tonight, folks, what I want us to do is I want us to kind of unpack 5 questions that I came up with that I think are important before you choose a life partner. At the end of the show, what we're going to do is we're going to have all the men up here go around and they're going to tell us what their 5 questions that you should ask before choosing a partner. And with that being said, I want to invite you guys in the chat or watching at home to do the same thing. As we're going through this and as we're unpacking this, think about what 5 questions you think are important before choosing a life partner. So, with that being said, we're going to get into the first question of the night, which is, are the talking point is this, or the question is this: are our core values and beliefs aligned? Why is this essential or not? So what they're going to do, we're going to start off with a talking point. The men up here tonight, they have the opportunity to talk about the actual question, or they can take the second question. So, or if somebody in the chat want to know something specific, feel free to type in the comments and ask us something more pertaining to this question. So again, I'll repeat it for these gentlemen and for the chat: are our core values and beliefs aligned? And the talking point is, why is this essential or not?
So good evening, family. So on this question, one, why is it essential? All right, it is probably the most essential question uh, in this discussion to me, because everything else underneath it falls in a line here, right? Our core beliefs or values are typically how we decision make, how we problem solve, how we, you know, move throughout our daily life, how we talk, how we act, how we raise children, how what we see in the spectrum of the world, right? And what we want to infiltrate into our home. So if we're not in an alignment here, everything here, from here on is kind of, it comes to a head. It comes to a head because you're one party is trying to impose their core values or their beliefs over the others, because we believe that our beliefs should shine in our home, right? I don't care who you are. You may not have a vision of who your spouse is supposed to be, but you have a vision of how your home should be ran, right? Of what you will and will not allow, and a lot of that is tied to your beliefs. If we don't believe the same, and a lot of us, the crazy thing in America is a lot of us say we believe in the same book, but we got 30,000 different doctrines. So because we both believe in this book, are our beliefs about this book in alignment? If not, then we, once again, we're we're going to continue to battle in life and battle about how we're going to approach life and approach family and approach this relationship. So it is definitely essential, to me, the most essential one.
I think when we try to tackle this question, are our values, core values and beliefs aligned? I'm totally with Gaddy over here, because if they aren't aligned, your core values make up your foundation. And when you don't have a true and a stable foundation, everything else is going to be rocky. So she may come and say, I want a man that's in church. Yeah, he may be in church, but that doesn't mean that the church is in him, the scripture is in him, and he's just going so that he can check that block instead of actually having a relationship. That's why you got to get to know people beforehand, because when we're talking core values, these are the things that's going to make us tick. These, when I get mad, I'm acting out of my core values. When I parent, I'm acting out of my core values. When how I treat people, it comes and it stems from my core values. So when we say, okay, are they aligned? I got to get to know you, because I need to know, are you going to fly off the handle off every little thing? Something happens and you just blow up, and I'm looking like, okay, I thought we discussed this. And do we actually communicate versus, I'm grinding in the morning, you grinding in the evening, and we just walking by one another, not necessarily communicating about our issues. Whereas you may have thought, well, I told you how I felt about it. And I'm looking at it like, well, you just voiced your opinion and you walked out. That wasn't communication. That was just you voicing your opinion. So do we tackle problems and see things the right, in the way that we both can consider them the right way?
So yeah, I'm completely in agreement as it pertains to this question. Why is it essential? I think it's essential to understand how committed you are to those core values as well. What do they look like? What specifically is important to you? I like what Gaddy said. Like, sure, we say that we may pattern our life off of the book, but how much of the book do you pattern your life off of? Do you only empower your life off of the portion of the book that you feel empowers you, and then reject the rest? Do we take the book in its entirety? If that's what we're patterning out, that's what we're using to pattern our life off of. So when we look at core values, I think we need to also define those core values. Um, you know, pick, piggybacking off my brother Stephen Kyle, he said, "What is your favorite ice cream? Your favorite desserts?" You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that might be important. You know what I'm saying? Um, but seriously though, seriousness, like, be specific. Don't just say, "Oh, we pattern our life off the book." Like, what specifically do you pattern your life off with when it comes down to the core values? And when you define those core values, or you have to define them to such a degree that you understand like the depth and breadth of your commitment to those core values. Like, I, I want to be, because I don't want to just leave it vague and say, "Oh, we do it off of the Bible," because a lot of times that's what people do, and then in your mind you assume, A through Z. But then in the midst of behavior, like Roland just talked about, you may fly off the handle whenever this right here happens. Now, I won't say that your behavior stems from your core value, although it should. A lot of times your behavior stems from your upbringing and a lot of the things that you've been through, some of the unharmonized emotions that you never dealt with based upon certain things that you've been through. So then that kind of leads to a deeper question that I know we're going to talk about here in a second moving forward. But again, when we look at those core values, what define those core values and to what degree? That's why I think it's essential.
Um, so this question, right, and what we're talking about is before choosing your life partner. So what I got a follow-on question to this. So if I'm with someone, we haven't made that commitment to get married yet or be in a long-term relationship. Like, what does that conversation look like? How do I know if our core values are lining up? And this is for anybody on the panel. Like, how do I know if if our core values are lining up? We've been on a couple of dates, maybe we've been dating for 6 months or something like this, because, all of us have said that sometimes you don't know somebody even after X amount of years. So how can someone be sure before they jump into something long term that their core values are lining up?
So I'll tackle this one first. So it's essential that you know what your core values look like, right? Um, Many people out there say I'm Christian, don't know what that means, right? Many people out there say I'm a Buddhist, but I don't practice it. Maybe I'm a Catholic, but I'm not a practicing. I'm a Muslim, but I'm not practicing. You know, we don't we don't know sometimes what that core belief looks like. What does it mean to say that I am a follower of Christ? Do we know what that looks like? How does that play out? Right? You say know the tree by the fruit that it bears. Do we know what the fruit look like? And so because sometimes we don't even recognize in ourselves that we're not shining the light that the scripture tells us to shine. And so we have a problem with seeing it in others. So I think the first, that to me, that's the first key right there, is knowing what your core values actually look like, expressed out. What does that look like in expression? Then we can begin to first search ourselves and then begin to see what that looks like in our partner. So I think that's half the problem, half the battle, which a lot of us are still trying to figure out what it looked like. We weren't taught properly in the home what it looks like. We saw Big Mama act one way in church, shout her wig off in church, go home and do something totally different. I'm not, you know, I'm not even gonna talk about that. Everybody know what their Big Mama did
Yeah, you
and
better
what
leave Big Mama alone.
hey,
Somebody gonna get you. They're gonna be on you. Hey, that's Gaddy, son of Timothy, 555-555. Call him up.
too fast.
Tell him what
No
you
good.
want.
You
I
stupid.
got you. I
But
get
I
that.
think somebody's mama might have been doing it the right way,
Yeah,
but a lot of us weren't really taught the thing that we said that we believe in our homes. So as adults, we're trying to figure it out and we're trying to piece it together. So some of us really don't know what those core values look like to even begin to cipher through it when it comes to dating or building relationships.
gotcha. Anybody else? That's it.
So if I want to make sure I got your question right, the question was, how do you know whether or not their the core values align? Like you went for a couple of dates, and over time you're trying to figure that out. Is that the
Yeah,
question?
and what does that look like? How do I know if our values are lining up? Because I'm looking at it, someone who's listening to this and they hear us talking, but now they're in a relationship. They've been in it for 4 months, and they're like, "Well, how do I know if my core values and hers are lining up?" What do you say to that? So that's pretty much what I'm asking.
Okay, easy. Behavior.
Mm,
Your behavior will always reveal what you really believe. I don't care what your mouth says. When your behavior shows up, believe the behavior over what was actually said.
I like it. Let's move right along then. Anybody else? Y'all got something else to chew on this about? Y'all good? What I would say, I would just add my 2 cents to this. Are our core values and beliefs aligned? I've often heard that birds of a feather flock together, and I've also heard opposites attract. So I'm like, well, what is it? And it seems like people say those things based off of the situation or the company that you keep. So I believe that it's both. For me and Shell, our core values and our beliefs align. I think that's very important that when you're in a relationship, those values, those things have to align. Your core values, they have to. But I also think that opposites attract. Like we do different stuff. Like she play on her cricket and watch certain shows, and I play with my RC cars and play games and do different stuff. But we also make time for each other because part of our core values, and things that we like to do and our beliefs require us, or not require us, but we want to spend time with each other too. So because our core values line up, we do things together. And like I said, the opposites attract and the birds of a feather. So I just think honestly that it's kind of both. But that's just my 2 cents. But that's all I got to say about that question. I am ready to move on. Actually, before I do, I want to bring up a question that we had from Michelle Ray. So, first of all, Michelle Ray, I appreciate you for being here this evening with us and joining in the chat. So, her question is this: are the core values beliefs based upon biblical principles?
That would depend on the person, because I can't press on someone else from a different culture core values that I, because they're my core values. That's why if I get in a relationship with someone who isn't aligned with my core values, there will always be conflict. There will always be discrepancies of what we should do and what we're supposed to do, because our values aren't aligned. And what we do is we try to fit a round hole into a square peg and make it work, instead of saying, hey, we may be good in a relationship, but romantically and building on this type of relationship, maybe not. It may be business, it may be something else. But for this and this purpose, no, because when I go to see the mother of my children, I don't want to have to argue about what we're doing with about my children with the mother of our children, because we should be in line, because the vision is there. So we're walking forward together, not she's walking this way and I'm walking this way, and the children looking at us both like we're crazy.
I'm gonna answer this myself too. Somebody else want to, they can. I'm going to say no. I see a lot of people who get married and core beliefs are based on biblical principles, right? And them jokers just as divorced as people who are not, you know, getting married under Christ. And then you will look at other cultures who don't necessarily believe in biblical principles, but they have a certain culture to them. And that culture sets some of the rules that determine how they are in certain core values and beliefs, and those relationships work. So I think, like, Rogan was saying, I think it is based off of the relationship. For some people, their relationships, if you have one, it's the whole equally yoked thing. Like, I think if you got one, you kind of need both. Y'all, either way, y'all need to be on the same path. If y'all going to believe in biblical principles, then y'all need to be believing in the same biblical principles and have an understanding and make sure that they're aligned. Like Gaddy said earlier, it's different levels to this. It's different types of, people believe different things when it comes to, the same book. Like he said, it's 30,000 different types, I forgot the word you use, when it comes to, what's that?
Denominations.
Yeah, exactly. So for the same book. So I definitely get it. But anybody else?
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to confuse what she is saying. I don't think
Okay.
this is a statement. I think this was a question she asked earlier when we were talking in relation to what we were saying. Like when
Okay.
we were talking about biblical principles, I think this was a question that she posed to go along with what we were talking about. Now, I agree 100% what you're saying. Like whatever a person's belief system derives from, but yeah, link up with a person who does the same thing. So if you don't believe in the Bible, then it might not be good for you to tie your life to somebody who actually believes in the Bible. That might be detrimental to your emotional health. But I just want to make sure. Okay, so yeah, she confirmed
Yeah,
that.
she
So
got you.
yeah, okay. So I just want to be clear. Okay, thank you.
All right. Also, Verling McCoy, thank you for your question. I see you popped that up too. What if you marry young, you do not know what core values are?
And I think that's the question or the statement I was bringing up earlier, right there, is because knowing what we know now, right? We understand scripture here at our age. I'm not gonna say our big age like some young people say because I'm my age ain't as big as y'all, but it's getting there, right? But we spend more time in the scripture on our own, right? So we understand certain things. But this was supposed to be something taught in the home, right? And that's something that we know now. This should have been taught in the home. So even if you marry young, you're not oblivious to what the scriptures are telling you to do and be, or whatever that core value of your. Uh, but we don't have cultural core values no more. So some of our parents were making it up as they went along, and some of us are making it up as we go along. And so if you marry young, I don't never tell nobody to run out and get divorced or whatever, what have you. But y'all need to sit down and really start having real conversations. I think we think marriage should get to a point to where it's just easy, smooth sailing, and we just ride the wave. No, you got to continue to have conversations. All right, I see our direction moving. Where are we going? What does this look like? Learn something new. We bring it up. We have to talk about it. What does this look like for the rest of our life then? Sometimes the answer might be, I don't know. I'm just figuring it out. Let's study it. Well, let's study it together. And I think one of the biggest detriments that happens is when you marry young, you're going to go through changes, right? Whether you don't marry or you marry, when you're young, you're going to go through changes. Your ideals of even what you believe, what that looks like changes as you get older, right? What you do, how you navigate through life from 20 to 25, it changes. If you're married at that time, those conversations need to be had when you start reading stuff and studying stuff and being aware of things. Have those conversations as it's changing so that nobody's is felt left behind or taken in the direction that they don't want to go.
Word up. Hey, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna put this last one up here real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do somebody else's job. Um, I apologize, Lavonda. So, thanks, Abe, for posting this. I understand you didn't have a question; you were just trying to say, but I just wanted to address it real quick, or let I just want to I want Coach to address it real quick. So, one common reason why relationships fail is misalignment of values. Even though it's not a question, Coach, can you answer that, or just give a quick 30 to 1 minute feedback to this to Abe, please?
Yeah, I think to his statement question, I would have to say the answer is yes. And it doesn't really matter which version of y'all existence do you talk about. If if you have a misaligned value when it comes down to, like, say for example, like we're talking about biblical principles, you believe the Bible says one thing but this person believes something, then you guys will butt heads as it pertains to that thing. You actually look at finances this way and this person look at finances this way. Eventually you guys are going to butt heads when it comes down to it. When it comes down to raising kids, you look at things one way and the other person look at things the other way. You guys are going to butt heads. So the misalignment of values as it pertains to the way that you guys live your life, yeah, it will cause problems, and ultimately it will pull you guys apart. Simply, especially if one party is stubborn and does not want to make any amends, and you guys have not necessarily identified what would be the judge when it comes down to your disagreements, then yeah.
I like it. Again, Abe, I appreciate the question. We're gonna move on to the next question. You know, we just talking about button heads, so let's roll right into it. How do we handle conflict? If you don't have this question before you have a relationship, or at least address it, you may have some issues. So again, the question that I proposed was how do we handle conflict? And do you believe understanding your partner's emotional triggers can prevent or minimize conflicts?
I think understanding emotional triggers will let me know that a person may not be ready for that long-term relationship when we're talking about commitment, because they still have some things that they need to deal with. Because if they're triggered by a lot, triggered by every word or some words, that means that there's some type of therapeutic action that needs to be taken before we can go forward, because I can't go around walking on eggshells thinking I'm going to offend you with everything that I do, because that makes me unhappy and me on edge, because I'm worried all the time about whether or not I'm going to offend you, and that won't make for a happy alignment. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave the how do we handle conflict for the coaches because I know y'all gonna be real practical with that. So I'm gonna jump down there where my brother was just at. I think it's important that I understand my emotional triggers and my partner understands their emotional triggers. And why do I say it like that? Though I do believe that there is a responsibility in relationships uh, to care and understand each other, you know, and not to purposely. I'm careful with that word offend because truth has the chance of offending someone at all times. But I should know how to handle my partner, right? But I'm not going to be held in captivity to your emotions. I refuse. Because what tends to happen is everything I say after when you realize that I'm going to move with your emotions, then everything becomes an emotional boundary I got to be stuck in, and now I can't speak freely in my own space because you're going to be triggered. That's for you to understand so that you can work on it. You can grow. You can get. You can become more receptive to information. And some people you just could never tell anything because the moment you tell them that they're not the most perfect being on the face of this earth, they trigger. I, we can't have a relationship if we're not going to grow. Unfortunately, we can ask 1,000 questions, but once the relationship gets started and it gets real, there's going to be some adjustment on your side and my side in order to make this thing work for the long run. So I think it's important for my partner to understand theirs and for me to understand mine and for us to work on it.
My bad. I was doing something else at the same time. Yeah. Um, I'm with Gaddy. No, I don't have to understand your emotional triggers. Your emotional triggers is on you. That's your business to work out. You got to work that out yourself. I got to work on mine, right? That's the everyday thing that I have to work on. How do we handle conflict? Because I think that's what Gaddy said he was going to point in our direction. I go back to that conversation we had a while back. We got to work out conflict with a concept called thoughtful disagreement, right? We actually come to an understanding of what that looks like. So, given the context of the conversation and the topic of conversation, like there's certain things that are should be taken into consideration. I'm not gonna let's just say my significant other is like she has a degree in finance, and let's just say she worked in finance and all that stuff. What I look like arguing with her about finance? I'm gonna go to her and ask her questions about finance. No, I'm the man in the house. That's stupid. That is just the dumbest thing ever. That's an example of what I'm talking about. We're not going to have an argument about finances. Like I
Hey,
will yield.
coach.
Yes.
I'm a butt in real quick, right? Because James Samuel asked a question, what would be considered a conflict? So I think maybe since you're already talking, because I hated that I had to cut you off while you was in mid thought, but I think it may be important to define what considered a conflict before we continue on, especially since Gaddy left some meat on the bone for us.
So I'm gonna leave James' comment to you, and I'm gonna go back to where I was. So that said, like I said, if she is in the finance arena, I'm not going to argue with her about finances. I will yield to her expertise. That is considered a thoughtful disagreement. And then at that point, the disagreement becomes no more of a disagreement. I get to the point where I start asking her questions because based upon what we're talking about, I need to understand what she understands. I think too many times when it comes down to these quote unquote conflicts, it just becomes a battle of egos. So when it comes down to it, we have to come up with a way. I think for me, regardless, it has to be, and this is what I said earlier, a judge. What is the judge in between a disagreement that we have? Well, the judge for me has to be the word. So whatever it is I'm thinking, and before I say what I say, I always consult the word based upon what it is that I want to talk about. When the word validates what it is that I'm thinking, now I can have that conversation. Therefore, now it's not even a conflict. It's not even a conflict. It's just me relaying my thoughts given said situation based upon the doctrine of the word. And if you disagree with me, let's take it to the word and talk about it. That's the simple version for me. That's called again, thoughtful disagreement. But too many times, what we tend to do is we get supercharged with emotions and we speak from the gut of our emotions, and there is no valid facts or there is no valid thing that justifies how I feel, except for my past experiences, what I've been through before, and what I'm not going to do now.
Got it. Now, I guess I'll answer the question. What would be considered a conflict? No, you did. I like what you did there. I ain't got no issue with it. Oh, you already answered the question. Boom, there you go. So you got it. So how do we handle conflict? I think that's a very important question because when people are getting together, that's very important. A lot of times when people go through situations and there's an argument or there's conflict or something or disagreement or difference of opinion, you know what I mean? Sometimes people hold very strong to those opinions. People can be very opinionated about certain things that they believe in. And when you see those things, sometime early on, sometimes it may be, like you said, if someone's always been triggered, those are signs that maybe this ain't for me. Maybe that person still needs some things to work on. So how do we handle conflict? It's like that's a question that need to be asked, because when things happen, what do we do? Do you start yelling and screaming? Do you leave the house for 5 days? Like, what do you do when you're upset, when there's a conflict? Do you are one of the people who start pointing the finger in people's face? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it? How do you handle your emotion when you are triggered? So I think that what people I think that those are some of the reasons why it's so important that couples or people that plan on being in something long term discuss and talk about how we handle how we handle conflict. um do we have any questions? I don't remember. I changed screens. Maybe not.
Okay,
Brand,
can I just jump in there real quick?
go
Because
ahead.
when it comes to this conflict thing, I think one thing that sometimes we forget as men and women in relationships with men or women, however it may go, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationships. Sometimes we forget that I can't forget that me and Gaddy may have an issue right now, but he is still my brother. Me and my wife may have an issue right now, but she is still my sister. So I can't treat him any type of way. I got to treat him like his father and my father are the same. And that's where we go wrong. Oh, that's my wife. I can talk to her how I want to. Them my kids. No, you a steward, and you may have some sort of quote unquote authority over this person, but at the end of the day, you're just a steward. So you must treat them as he wants to treat them and not you. And when we can get to that point where we can see ourselves under the leadership of him and guidance of him, then we say, okay, how would he want me to treat her? How does he want me to resolve this thing? Whether we got to step back and say, okay, it was some heated fellowship right then, but I got to come back with a humble expression of gratitude that I'm in relationship with this person.
And I think you kind of cleared up this trigger thing too, because sometimes we get it twisted when we think that when we talk about how we're responsible for treating each other, and we twist that when it comes to barriers or to triggers and all that. Like, you can't make it my responsibility to dance around the things you got to work on. It's my responsibility to treat you how the scriptures tell me to treat you, how my father told me to treat you. Right? That's what I'm responsible for. Whether it's my, like you said, whether it's my brother or my spouse, I have to treat you how I'm supposed to treat you. That's different than me dancing around your emotional triggers. And so I like that you brought that out, because that sometimes you have to see that other side so people understand the difference. So when you try to say, well, that's my triggers, what? All right, we work on that. Everybody can't be held into captivity to something because it bothers you.
And I get that. Everybody says some really good talking points. We're gonna move on. One of the things that happens oftentimes in relationships is that people grow. Sometimes they grow together, sometimes they grow apart, sometimes people are working on themselves in the relationships, and sometimes people are not. But I think it's very important before people get into that really long term conversation. You have that conversation about growth. What is your level of commitment to growth? Are you a type of person who you don't do anything, you just let life be life? Are you a person who's constantly working on trying to become a better person? Um, whatever it may be. So the question is, are we both committed to growth? The talking point is, how do we view personal and joint growth within a relationship?
I think when it comes to growth, when I first joined the military and after I got married, I was thinking, hey, I'm the breadwinner and I go to work all day. And I was thinking, okay, you're supposed to stay home, watch the kids, this, that, and the other. And I overlooked, hey, this person also needs to grow. This person also needs to have something outside of here. So I never took into consideration that, man, she wanted to go. I was thinking that, like, if I had to watch the kids after I got off work, I wanted to go play ball. I wanted to wind down. I wanted to do something. So the selfishness of being a young, immature person, I was only thinking about my growth. Okay, my next promotion, my this, my. And sometimes, well, at least in my relationship then, I recognized that I was selfish and it was all about my growth. And I never even considered the other person. And that's a stumbling block that many of us, when we get into relationships young, we fall onto that because we're thinking about what we do, how we can move ahead, and the other person is there as a support system and not me to serve them and them to serve me.
All right, hey, I'm gonna jump in there. And I'm gonna mix it up a little bit, right? So I remember, I keep hearing the word Bible come up today, right? And I know some of us been in some relationships, and we've been thought at some point that we may have been holier than thou, right? And I've heard a whole bunch of stories about husbands, trying to beat their wife up with the word, right? And now this where I'm talking about this joint growth right here, right? There I've seen people saying that, hey, you know what? We need to pray together. We need to read the Bible together. We need to go to church together. Everything when it comes to growth in their spirituality, I've seen couples where everything they do is together. That's what they believe. And I've also seen some of those couples to break up eventually, you know. So I think that, I want to get to some of that right now. I feel like, well, I'm thinking that, we keep talking about biblical principles, we keep talking about the Bible, but that's something that I've always heard. So I want to kind of unpack that. So what are y'all thoughts on, the joint growth within the relationship, especially when it comes to what I just said versus doing my own personal thing?
I, trying to tread carefully where how I want to go there. Um, so I talked about earlier, like that we have all these different denominations and all these different belief systems that come out of one book, right? Is one book, one truth, right? There's one God, one truth, right? Now you might believe in a different God, than the God of the Bible, right? But we're talking about the book. We're talking about this book, right? And so we have to get out of the concept of trying to make it fit us. That's my first thing. If the goal is for us to fit what the Father has said, then I think sometimes I think we'll get rid of the men who trying to beat the women up with the Bible, and then sometimes you get rid of some some women who feel like they're being beat up with the Bible, because what we have today is a generation of people who believe the Bible is teaching them that sin is the new holiness. The same Bible that says, "Woe unto them that call good evil and evil good," but the doctrine that we have taught recently is that sin is good and righteousness is bad. If you're righteous, you don't have a need for Christ. But if you're a sinner, you be holy and accepted into the kingdom. What? And so, and why am I talking about? I'm not trying to do a Bible study on this, but the problem is we have such a screwed view of what the scriptures are actually saying that in order to lead my home according to the scriptures, I have to be uh, uh, in jeopardy of someone saying that I'm I'm a chauvinist, or someone saying that I'm trying to beat up somebody with the Bible. I'm trying to force you to do things, and all. I want you to. No, we're just reading the scriptures. And if the scriptures offend you or make you feel that way, address it with the scriptures. If that's what we saying we're coming into this to believe or to grow together in, because I think sometimes we act like there's only responsibility on one side when it comes to what the scripture says. There's heavy responsibility on both sides. But I'm gonna leave that right there.
So y'all thoughts on, you know, I want to know a little bit more. You know, I think he did a good job, but I don't know if he really hit the nail on the head as far as what I was trying to get to. The main thing what I was trying to get to is that when you have couples in a relationship, and you know when they're in the Word and they're going to church and they're living for Christ and stuff like this, you know, should they be, you know, what does it look like with the joint growth versus the personal growth? Because like I said, I've seen couples and you know they kind of like force or really, you know, make it clear, say, hey, this is what we're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? We're supposed to pray together. We're supposed to read our Bible together. We're supposed to read, you know, the love languages book together, whatever it may be. So what do y'all say to that?
I think that you have people who have been manipulated to think that whoever the man or the woman of God that leads certain places is supposed to tell me what to do, tell me how to live, tell me how to move. So what happens is I can use what that person says as ammunition against my spouse. Or I can, you know, it's like, no, if who's leading the house, my house, him or me? So that's why I have to be the one developing my relationship. She has to be the one developing her relationship. So when we come together, now we can communicate. Now we can see where we're growing. Now where we can see where we need to grow. And when we go to a certain place, that person is not the head of our house. So their decisions are for their house. But at the end of the day, they aren't leading my house. So you can't go tell on me. You can't go and because that's what happens. So when we talk in church and that conflict, I think that we need to stop thinking that if I go to a certain building, if I'm under certain leadership, then I will be holier. I will be better led. No, you will look the part, but sometimes looking the part and being the part are two different things, because the maturity comes through the growth of the scripture, and then our maturity as two people in relationship should be where we can come together on the scripture and say, let's reason together on this, so that now we can go forward.
I struggle with this, and here's why. Because a lot of these people, and you don't necessarily know who, right? A lot of these people still have on their mask. And so a lot of what you're seeing and or hearing is because that's what they want you to believe. They're doing a thing because it fits their narrative of what the marriage is supposed to be. But there has to be an individual path for each party so that they can be a joint path together. I tend to say it like this: either we're going to grow together or we're going to grow apart, but growth is not an option. So if we're talking about in the scriptures, it would behoove you to grow with me, because my relationship, according to how I understand it to be, will not cease because we said I do. So ideally, I would like for you to grow with me. But if you want to spend your time watching Desperate Housewives and, you know, Housewives of Atlanta and all kind of stuff like that, That's your choice. And I'm going to leave you to it. But eventually you're going to recognize it's going to start being a space in the gap because I'm not going to stop reading. I'm not going to stop studying. I'm not going to stop teaching. And if you so choose to withdraw from that, that's on you. And at the end of the day, what you're going to find is that there's going to be this great divide. So when we talk about, when you hear certain people say, well, and I'm not saying this you, I know you're posing a question, but when you hear certain people say, well, my husband want to beat me up with the scripture, or my wife want to beat me up with the scripture, or this is that, and so forth and so on. Well, how do I know that what they're telling me is the true, authentic thing that actually happened? And again, to be honest with you, it ain't my business. That's their business. That's their relationship. Y'all got into it. Y'all the only two people that's gonna tear it apart. So you sharing with me what happened in your relationship, I hate to say this, and it's really going to sound callous, but I don't really care. You understand what I'm saying? And I mean it in love, if you can take it that way, right? I don't really care. That's in your relationship. Now, if you want me to help, I'm here for it. But once it goes down the rabbit hole, once it once they hit rock bottom and y'all keep digging, don't call me at that point because it's too late. You should have called me when y'all realized y'all was digging a hole. Hey, this is the time to have a conversation. And so we can have that conversation at that particular point in time, not to blame one person or the other, but to come together, like Roland said, come together so we can reason and see what the scripture says about the thing that you're doing, but what's going on within your relationship. But it is imperative for both parties to be on a growth pattern if they're married that is identical so they can come together and see that growth happen in their marriage as well.
All right. I like it, man. It was some good points. I don't even know if I want to highlight anything, but so what I'll do is I was just send a shout out to the chat. You guys have been busy over there, been really active and participating. So appreciate you for that. Appreciate you for being here. If you're new here today, go ahead and hit that like button, share it with somebody, and watch it on the replay. And check out the other videos that we got. Also, yeah, let's move on, man. Man, one of the things that I want to talk about, and I think is really important, is what are our roles and responsibilities are going to be. What are expectations for roles and responsibilities? A lot of times people get into relationships and they hadn't had this conversation, and they think that they're gonna marry this woman, and this woman gonna come in and she's gonna cook every day, and she's gonna clean up the house, and she's gonna have her apron on, and when you come home, she's gonna be all dolled up and just excited to see you. And women think that they done married this hardworking dude that's gonna be able to fix the plumbing and put shingles on the roof and be 6 foot tall and all these other different things. And then we're not 6 foot tall, but then you get into them and you realize things ain't what they were all cracked up to be because you had an expectation from this person and you guys hadn't talked about it and you hadn't had this conversation. So with that being said, the question is, what are our expectations for roles and responsibilities? And what the talking point, either one y'all want to get to, what do role expectations mean to you and how are they communicated?
I think that we kind of pattern ourselves after roles growing up. We teach our daughters, she watched Disney and she's fooled by Disney. When it comes to Prince Charming, I think we talked about that on one of the shows. And so what she does is she has Prince Charming in her mind. She has Denzel on the movie on her mind. She has all these things on her mind, but she ain't with Denzel. She with you. And then what she does is she tries to fit you into that mold instead of allowing you to be who you are. And then growing up, we as young men, we see the nice looking women on TV. So we see those little centerfolds that we used to get out and pull out. And we want that person. Oh, you got to look like that. But then after she's had 3 of your kids, them big head babies came out of her and they're yours. And now you say, oh, well, you ain't 135 pounds again anymore. So now you try to push that off. But when we're talking about roles, my role, I got one role. It's to be the man, to be the husband. So whatever that is, I think all roles are roles of servitude, of service. So if I got to pick up some slack and clean, cook, and do this, because we're in relationship, that's what I do. but I can't become just overlooked. You know, sometimes we can overlook people that do things. I think when we're in relationship, I can't say, well, it's the woman's role to cook and clean. Those things can be transferred. Whoever in the kitchen, whoever cooked better or whatever. But when it comes to something, if someone rings my doorbell right now, I will stop my camera and I'm going to the door. It's nighttime and I don't know, because I'm looking at it for the safety of my home. That's my role. And they will know that. They'll keep ringing the doorbell and none of them women gonna answer the door. But that's at my house. I don't think we have, I'm a father, she's a mother, and I'm a husband, she's a wife. I don't do all those, well, cooking and cleaning and washing, and because those are things that I actually do. And, because I don't look at it as a role for a woman. So because I do those things and I like doing those things, but it doesn't minimize my manhood. Sometimes we think certain roles minimize our manhood, so we don't want to do it. It's your job to cook, it's your job to clean, and you got your drawers over there in the corner looking like a new set of furniture. No, you got to make sure that you help out, and it's our responsibility to maintain the relationship and the household.
Wait, did you say drawers looking like a new set of furniture? I just wanted to make sure I heard you right.
With the lazy boy, I guess it might be brown too. I don't know.
Very well, very well.
Yeah, I try to stay out of this conversation of roles. If we're not going to talk, and so this goes back to the previous conversation, how we view roles and responsibilities. This is why I said that first question is the most essential, right? What are our core values and beliefs, right? Because what are we basing this concept of roles off of? At the end of the day, I'm not a man, and you're not a woman. And I hear my brother, and it's the conversation that always comes up, right? But at the end of the day, everything becomes transferable, means everything becomes one person's responsibility at the end of the day. And every time I hear this conversation and I have this conversation, and I'm not here to, I don't want to start an argument with nobody, but when I hear this conversation, there's always the men transferring everything to the man. And so it becomes the role of everything is the man. And so at what point do we identify what is? And I think because we're afraid to hurt feelings, we don't like to say the role of a woman, because the moment you say role of a woman, they're already ready to fight, cut you, snap their fingers, clap their hands, and twist their neck, right? Not all women, right? So please don't jump me in the comments. I love y'all. But I think we do this so often that the only thing we ever talk about is what the role of the man is. And it becomes the role of the man is to be everything. Well, I could be single and be everything. So what is the woman bringing to me other than the sexual value? If I'm the one, if I'm going out working all day, coming home paying all the bills, right? Now, granted, I'm not saying both parties can work, right? But if I'm the one paying all the bills and then I'm taking up 90% of the housework so that she's not tired, I might as well be single. Because what are we doing? Because the only thing we're actually doing together is in the bedroom. And I'm not saying women need to be pregnant and barefooted in the kitchen, but we have to identify more than just one role. And it can't. I just, that's always the conversation. It's always a conversation. What is the man's role and what the man is supposed to do, and what the man is, and the man has a lot of responsibility. I get that. A lot of responsibility is on the man. But I feel like, and it's just me, but I feel like we giving out all the time to a lot of women who don't want to be identified as having a role.
Hey, bring that up. Yeah, bring that up. I seen it too. Bring it up. That's simple. I'm not trying to be funny, and I like the fact she said it's really that simple. If she get out there and grab the lawnmower, I'm gonna run over my truck. I'm just keeping it real. You ain't cutting the grass in my house. That's all it is. I'm joking. I'm not gonna run you over the truck. You know I'm joking. But I'm just saying, this is an easy question for me, right? What are expectations for roles and responsibilities for them to exist? What do role expectations mean to you? They are responsibility. They are responsibilities for each party, and are they how are they communicated verbally? It's simple. That's my take on it. Now, are you? And I'm not asking you this, right? Are you looking for the specificities? Not your business. It's their business. Whoever's in relationship. So if he does all the cooking, then by golly, good on him. By golly, good on her. If she cuts the grass, great, and he's all for that, great. I ain't gonna have a lot of respect for him. That's just me. But I'm just saying. Listen, this right here, and I've heard it so many times. I'm with you to a certain degree. Like I don't. The whole gender role things is like, come on, man. Like, you know, I have a better conversation by figuring out what kind of shoes I'm gonna wear tomorrow morning when I get up. Like, seriously, we like to impose our will, our assumptions, our thoughts, whatever, on somebody else's in their house. That ain't your business. Whatever they do in their house, like I'm gonna use you because I like the fact that you be transparent, right? Whatever they do in their house, that's their business. That ain't for me to decide. It ain't for me to critique. Whatever I do in my house is my business, right? That's how it works. That's how it should be. We get caught up in the nuances of things. First and foremost, you ain't gonna ever find no piece of paperwork that articulates who's supposed to be cooking and cleaning. So what you got to go off of? It become an endless pursuit of nothingness. So to me, I think it's real simple. Are there gender roles in the house? Yes. Right? Should they exist? Yes. They define responsibility. I don't care what it looks like. And at the end of the day, how they're communicated, verbally, honestly, transparently. That's how they're communicated. If you do not, then that if you do it, especially early on, now you have an understanding of how your partner think. And then if you need to make some adjustments, that's cool. Like if you want your old lady to cook, young man, if you want her to cook, and she like, well, ain't nobody ever taught me how to cook. Get your behind in the kitchen and say, don't worry, baby, I'll teach you how to cook. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I think a lot of times we create confusion when confusion doesn't necessarily have to exist. So that's just my take on it. I think this is a very easy and simple space, but a lot of times we get caught up in the whirlwind of confusion. Well, I ain't gonna do this, I ain't gonna do that. Don't do it then. It's that simple. Don't do it. Ain't nobody gonna beg, ain't nobody gonna make you do nothing. Fellas, if you don't want to pick your drawers up off the floor and then it sits there and look like a brand new set of furniture, let it sit there. Let's see how long she stick around and deal with that. Or she gonna stick around and deal with it and pick them up behind you. That's what happens in your house. And me personally, I really don't care.
I appreciate all the takes on it. So I'm like this. What are our expectations for roles and responsibility pre-marriage? I think this question is important. And I think it's important because I think that there needs to be roles and responsibilities. I understand what James Samuel said. He said we do what we find our hands to do when it is needed. If I need to clean the house, I clean the house. If she needs to take the trash out, she takes the trash out. Certain things will take care of. So I don't necessarily think I necessarily 100% agree with that. And the reason being, I think that sometimes this can maybe create a space of laziness, or to where things may become imbalanced, meaning that if I know that, you know what, I'm just gonna sit back. I ain't gonna never take the trash out because I know she's gonna take it out. Or I ain't gonna clean the kitchen because I know he's gonna clean the kitchen. So I think that maybe they're not necessarily specific to those certain roles, but I think that there needs to be some structure and some roles kind of sort of handed out so people know where they fit in. You know, I know that, every week me and Coach do Coach's Corner. I know where I fit in. There are certain things that I do. There are certain things that we do. We have a relationship, a working relationship for Coach's Corner, so, but we can't just go up in there willy-nilly every Tuesday. Coach decide, well, you know what, I ain't going to come up with a topic this week. But then I show up and I'm like, what's the topic? He like, well, I don't know. So I thought you was going to do it. So I don't necessarily agree with just I understand picking up people's slack, but I think there needs to be some communication when we're picking up some slack. You know what I'm saying? We need to have some defined roles within the house. If something is going on and you can't fulfill your role, address it. Say, hey, look, baby, I'm tired today. I had a hard day at work. Can you take out the trash, go cook dinner, and feed the baby for me? Yes, I got you. I can do that. You know what I'm saying? But just not taking out the trash, just not cooking the dishes, you know what I mean? Hoping or thinking that because we don't have this structure in place that someone else is going to do it, I think that can lead a space where it creates a certain amount of laziness and it can create some resentfulness because eventually somebody gonna feel like, darn, I've been taking out this trash for the last week. You know what I'm saying? I've been washing the dishes for the last week because there was no clearly defined plan in place for who is supposed to do what role in the house. Now you can take out cooking, cleaning, you can add in whatever you want to add in. But that's my kind of take on it, you know, and I if somebody want to respond back to it, feel free to do so.
Like you're good, and that's exactly what I was saying. Like it has to be addressed openly, and you have to talk about it. If you don't talk about it, then you got a house full of well, not full, but you got two people in the house that are assuming something, and you know how that goes. Like even with like Michelle Ray mentioned balance, but I'm agreeing with the balance thing, but I don't want us to think as balance as being equal. It's not an equal thing. It will never be an equal thing. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have, especially in this country, right? We want this thing called equality. You don't really want equality because if I hit you with the equality button, then trust me, now you're saying you're going to do the exact same thing I'm doing. It's not going to work because you ain't going to want me to do it. You get that lizard in the house and you be like, hey, come get this lizard. No, you man up, go grab him. Grab him by his tail and throw him out the door. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying.
Go fix that toilet.
Exactly. Like balance is good, but understand that balance and equality is not the same thing. We keep screaming equality too many times, but equality is a misnomer and it's a deceptive tactic.
I think, and this is me. I think what we have done somehow, some way, we have made certain things seem as if it's lesser than others. And so when we, even in the space of having a conversation, I don't think a lot of relationships are comfortable having a conversation because I feel like if I tell this woman that I think she should cook, whether she know how to cook or not, I'm telling her that she's less than me because she's cooking, or she's not as important as me because she's cooking. I think we put a negative spin on things because if I cook, I want you to, every time I cook, I want to see my family go, Daddy, that was good. Oh, hey, that was good. I like, I don't feel less than because I cooked the meal. So why saying, hey, I would like for you to cook? It seemed like the lesser role, or I was. It's frustrating to me to have this conversation because I feel like that's where we always end up. We always end up to where, you're not just gonna have me stuck in the kitchen. You're not just gonna have me do or whatever. It's not a lesser role. It's not you bigger than me, you worse than me, you're not as great as me, or you're not as important as me. It's we serve different capacities to each other. Like Roland say, I bet you one thing I'll never see when I go to his house. I bet you if I come knock on that door, my sister ain't coming down there to open it. I could put my last dollar on that because she's not going to get in the way of any attacker or any intruder in that house. She's not going to be able to step into that role. So there should also be some clear understanding on the other side of things that she shouldn't allow him to step into as well. You get what I'm saying? So and I do agree that is the balance versus the equality as well. So I think we got to get out of that mindset that if you cook a meal, you're less. If you pick something up, you're less. There's no lesser or greater. We just serve two different capacities to one another to make the thing the whole. Whatever we identify that role looks like. How
Yeah. And you know me, I will. Hey, ain't nobody cook? Chipotle close at 10. And if you ain't had it, get that brisket bowl. But Chipotle close at 10. And I think what works in my house may not work in Coach's house, or so that's why you two have to have communication to see, hey, like I think Coach said, she may not be good at cooking. So, hey, we can take a cooking class, or we can do this. So don't make arguments out of things that aren't the main thing. Because the main thing is us being within the relationship, glorifying him. Us arguing about whether or not you had to eat some cinnamon toast crunch last night because ain't nobody cooked is asinine. You know, did you eat? You ate. So now how do we rectify the problem and stop coming up with problems and come up with solutions?
All good stuff, man. I'm glad we went a little bit further with this. I'm really glad we did. The last question of the night before we get to everybody else's 5 questions to ask before you choose your life partner. So y'all stay tuned, because again, at the end, these brothers gonna give us they're gonna give us their 5 questions to ask before choosing a life partner. I'm expecting it. You know what I mean? I got my notepad. You know, I didn't write a bunch of notes on purpose so I could leave space to write these things down. But you know, when it comes to a vision, you know, I've heard a whole bunch of different things. I heard, you know, the man gets the vision and he gets it from God and he shares it with the wife. I heard that the man and the wife come up with the vision together, all these different things. So before someone gets deep into a relationship, I think it's an important question to ask. Do we share a vision for the future? Now, with that being said, you can go a couple of different ways with this question. Who creates the vision, or how flexible or rigid should the vision be? So, gentlemen, we got a couple of different ways to go on this question. Chat, if you want to chime in, you want to know something specific, feel free to add to the conversation.
The Most High creates the vision. He does. I believe that he gives the vision, right? And we're talking about the overall vision of the family, right? To the head, right? To the husband. But the husband is responsible for proper articulation and understanding of what that vision is. That's what I believe, right? I think when we start talking about should it be flexible or rigid, it depends on the vision, right?
Hold up real
As,
quick. So pause. So you said that God gives the husband the vision?
yeah,
Okay. Can he also give it to the wife? Because some people say, well, what about the wife? God's not a respecter of persons. So can he not give the vision to the woman?
but he's also not a
I'm just
man that he
asking.
should. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm just really asking.
no. And so just like Numbers also said, he's not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he shall repent. And he said it to where the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, right? Now, with that being said, the moment if he gives the vision to the wife to give to the husband, the wife now takes the position as the head over the husband because she's the one with the direction. So if he does that, then he has set things in a different order than what he has said it is. And so I don't believe that he's ever lied or he repented of anything that he has ever set in order. But we see that in the garden. You go all the way back to the beginning. There's a reason why the serpent went to the woman to set things out of order. This is why when he addresses the two, after all is said and done, he addresses the woman and says, now your crave shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. He wasn't trying to make anything rigid or harsh. He had to set back in order the order he set in the beginning. That Satan had destroyed. So we have to keep the order of the Father in its proper perspective. So if the wife says that she was given the vision over the husband, tread carefully. That's all I have on that.
Gabby done threw that out there. It's like, whoa. I think that when we're looking at vision as the head of the house, It is my position to lead. Now, I think what people may hear is that we're minimizing her aspect in this relationship. No, because we know that she sees things. We know that she's connected. So, but the person that will be responsible for everything will be him. When it comes to, like, if something happens, they coming to him. If somebody knock at the door and the kid, hey, the husband answering the door. So I think when we're talking vision and vision from the Most High, she's there as a helpmeet to make sure that I'm in line with the vision that we've already talked about, that we've already prayed about and discussed. Make sure that it goes forward, because I may be too much into myself and I may be taking us to the right when we're supposed to be going straight. So she's there as a companion to make sure, hey, babe, we supposed to be going this way. Not, I don't care what you're doing, I'm going this way. See, that's what happens. We have people that want, hey, what roles are we taking? I'm taking the lead on this one because we're not talking about whether or not we're going to the grocery store or whether or not we're going around the corner. We're talking leading this family. And leading this family, if I'm the man, I'm leading the family. If I wasn't, you should have chose another man. I mean, it sounds harsh, but it's true. When you find a real man, some women that aren't secure will say he's toxic. No, he's just simply being a man. He simply knows what his vision is for himself, for his family, and you either get on board or get off.
I don't disagree with nothing these brothers said. That's why I'm just sitting here smiling, just like let them cook, because I'm right there. I like the question that was asked: are we creating a shared vision? No, no. I am casting vision. It's we have to understand, because again, there's some things we got to disown, because the things that we have brought into it wants to take it and make it equality. That's why I started off with the whole equality thing. It's not about equality, it's about balance. And what's the balance? When you two got married, you're supposed to find a way to become one flesh. So, to Roland's point, like when some people hear it, it sounds as though they're saying that women are less. No, becoming one flesh is the part that you guys are working on. So when he gets the vision, he must cast it so that she understands the vision, because now you're working together in unison. You guys are working to you guys are working so that you two can fulfill the vision together. That vision also not incorporates the two of you, it incorporates everyone in your household. So if you have children, they're a part of that vision as well. Now, when they get grown and all that other great stuff and they decide to move on, that's a thing, but then that's more of a Western thing, because at the end of the day, we're supposed to create something so that they can inherit, so that they can take over and start running and controlling and things of that nature, because they grew up in it. That's how it's supposed to be. A lot of times we like to, and I do this a lot for the sake of understanding, we like to look at things from a corporate structure. This is the thing that you can't look at from a corporate structure, because there's only one CEO of the company. So when you hear it from the perspective of a relationship, you're thinking what you know, and that's work. And work says there's only one person in charge and one person, and this, that, this, and the third. The only thing that applies there is like I think it was Roland said, there's one person that's going to be solely responsible. There has to be one person that's responsible. However, and if you don't believe me, go back and read Genesis chapter 1. I'm sorry, Genesis chapter 1 through 3. However, understand that man incorporates the male version and the female version. And until you process that, when you hear man, you're always thinking, well, that doesn't include me. Well, if that's what you believe, that's part of the reason why relationships are the way they are right now. So out of fear of going too far and going too deep in this, because I can talk about this for quite some time. I already mentioned that. Before fear of going too far and going too deep in, I'm gonna stop right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all great talking points, and I'm in alignment with everybody. I believe the same thing. I believe that the man is given a vision and he shares it with his wife. So with that being said, we got about 9 minutes or so to go, and this is, we're kind of about to wrap up with the final thoughts. But as you see, we got about 9 minutes to go, so that means these brothers are going to have a little bit of time to be able to cook a little bit as far as when it comes to whatever their talking points are and whatever their 5 questions to ask before choosing your life partner. So if you want to, while these brothers are going through their 5, if you feel like you want to type your 5 in the chat, feel free to do so. But if not, that's fine too. Listen to what these brothers have to say. Listen and see what those 5 things are. And then something else I said backstage before we jumped on, and I want to share it with you guys as well. And that is, with these 5 questions, if you are currently in a relationship, then maybe sit down with your husband or your wife or your partner, whatever like that, and go through some of these questions, because I think that a couple or somebody who's in a relationship could benefit. How people renew their vows every certain years. It's nothing wrong with going back and doing a check on learning to kind of see where we at, because the relationship, after a while, the relationship evolves, people grow, people change, people adjust, people evolve, all these different things while they're in a relationship. So as so excuse me. So again, if you want to, you can look at these questions, if you're in a relationship with somebody, and say, hey, are our core values and beliefs still aligned? How do we handle conflict? Go back and revisit, hey, how are we handling conflict? Last time we got in an argument or we had conflict, this is what happened. Is this how we want to continue, or what do we need to adjust in the conflict area? Are we both committed to growth? Are you guys still committed to growth, or are you not? What is your perspective on growth? What is her or his perspective on growth? What are our expectations and roles for responsibilities? Things change. Maybe at one point y'all had kids in the house, now y'all don't. Maybe someone's in a part of their career to where they're working longer hours, so someone may have to pick up the slack. So have you discussed and talked about these things going forward? And lastly, my 5th one again is, do we share a vision for the future? Have the man been presented the future, and have that vision, have your man been presented the vision, and have that vision been articulated to you in a way that you understand it? Have you asked the proper questions to make sure that you are in alignment and understand the vision of the future? So that is my final thought. That is my last little talking piece on all of this. So we are going to start going around the horn. I think we're starting with Gaddy, then we're going to hit Roland, and then we're going to hit Coach. And we're going to get these final thoughts. And now I want to hear what you brothers got to say about these 5 questions to ask before choosing your life partner.
Good evening. Good evening. So when we talk about 5 questions, so for me, it's more of 5 conversations, right? First one has to be about what we believe, about our belief. And can we articulate that? Can we have a discussion about it? Can we talk about it? Because a lot of the things that we talked about today all falls back to me under the umbrella of belief. So that's a conversation that needs to be had. The next is in alignment with our belief. Now, if me as a man, I'm going to ask the woman what is her viewpoint of what the responsibility of the wife is, and and just to kind of see where her mind is at concerning relationship. And I think for women, it should be the opposite, because we may not know everything. I can't tell a woman how to be a woman, but I do know that there are some things that I may or may not want, right? That might be deal breakers for me. And if I'm only focused on what she wants for me to be, then I'm setting myself up to be manipulated to be something that I may or may not be. So the question is, what do you, as the woman, see the responsibility of the wife is? And that's a conversation. Third, how do you handle your finances right now as an adult? How do you handle your finances? If finance is not a strength, I'll take on, let me have that. Let me handle it. We'll have that conversation later. And then if it's a strength to you, are you willing to take it off? Make sure that we're good. Or like I think someone talked about earlier, not to have an argument. Forget not having an argument. I want to lean on that expertise that you have in finances to better our finances as a family. And then a big one for me is, and I know people look at me crazy, but is, are you gentle? Um, I think we've made so many hard and rough women, that it's hard for a male's energy to exist in their space because they've been taught and built to be so hard. And so for me, that's the big thing. Are you gentle? And let's talk about that. What does that look like? You know, uh, and my last one is really a joke, but it is, but it ain't, right? And that's, how do you feel about the Dallas Cowboys? If you're a Cowboy fan, then I got to swipe left. I'm sorry, I'm joking. I'm joking. Uh, I really didn't have uh, a total of five because I believe if we have these conversations, a lot of these things will come out. And it's not too much. If we got our, if we believe in the same thing, if we're united on our on what the scripture says and on our finances, right? And we are, and this is me. If you are gentle, I I can exist in that space. I can be I can be me as a man in your gentle space, and you can be gentle in my space. I think that's important for me.
I'm gonna throw these out here in no particular order. First and foremost will be, are you seeking a greater relationship with the Most High? Because I think sometimes we can put the Most High on the back burner when we find the one that makes our heart flutter, that makes us smile all day, and we can start to neglect that relationship. And I think I want someone more connected with Him versus me, because at the end of the day, if they're more connected with Him versus me, then we will minimize the problems that we have within the relationship when it concerns things of that nature. Second question would be, how can I help you grow? How can I help you grow? And where do you see yourself being? Where do you see yourself being within this relationship and as an isolated person? Where do you see yourself being? Do you have goals? Are you goal oriented and things of that nature? Third is finances. We got to talk finances, because if you have a 320 credit score and I have an 850, we aren't necessarily going in the same direction, or there may be situations that you're still holding on that's holding you back from growing in that arena, where I can't trust you in certain areas with finance because you've already shown that you aren't responsible. Uh, Raising kids, that's four. Raising kids, we got to come together on raising kids, because uh, I hate when people say, if I'm a man and I was a single father at one point, I could never say, well, I want a Mother's Day present because I'm doing all this by myself. No, that makes you a great father, outstanding father to some degree, but you still have your flaws. So as us both raising children, how are we going to raise these children? How are we going to have them look at the world and at themselves so that they can be better examples of not just us, but of the Most High? And five, have you healed from all your past hurts and traumas? And have they been identified? Because sometimes we go into a relationship not healing from things that held us back in the past, and we hold on to them like badges of honor. And whether you being poor, whether you know things, whether there may be been molestations, there may have been some things that you haven't healed from, and within this relationship, something may come up where the other party doesn't even know about it, and then you're triggered by that, and it stunts the growth of the relationship to a point to where now you want to just separate instead of actually dealing with it. So before connecting those two unions, make sure those things are dealt with by professionals so that you can actually move forward in a healed manner. It's just like when Christ said, "Will thou be made whole?" He didn't ask if she wanted to be made well. Will you be made whole? Some of us aren't whole out here. We're merely thinking that we're healed from certain things, but not from other things. But when you're whole, you realize that when I have Him and I'm connected to Him, I don't have to have this holding or walking around with a cloud over my head, because I've dealt with it, I've handled it, and I can move forward with my head held high. When I don't, then I'll still have those triggers. And those are my 5.
All right. I'm just going to run down the 5 real quick, then I'll go back and talk a little bit about them. In order, number 1 is faith. Number 2 is love and commitment. Number 3 is forgiveness. Number 4 is conflict. And number 5, got to have the money talk. First and foremost, when it comes down to faith, what role does faith play in your life? I know a lot of times we like to talk about faith and we go back and quote scripture and things of that nature, but what we do is we tend to have a knack of picking faith up and putting faith back down, and then transitioning to what we knew before, and then doing what we did before. Then when we get into trouble, we go back to faith. So I want to start off with that one. What role does faith play in your life? Second is the whole love and commitment thing. I want to know whether or not, like, how do you envision love, and how does it connect to commitment? A lot of times what you'll find is that love can be articulated as this, and I hate to minimize it to like pie in the sky, but kind of like what Roland said earlier, it's more online with a fairy tale. Like somebody's going to, pull up in the middle of the night in their horse-driven chariot and come and swoop you away and steal you away from your situation. That's not love. That's fairy tale. So what does love and commitment look like? Are they two separate things, or are they one and the same? Number 3 has to be forgiveness. In other words, I would have to say, do you have a cutoff criteria? Well, not a cutoff criteria, a this then that criteria. If this person does that, then all bets are off, right? And I think that's important to understand, because for that person, they're not ready for a relationship. Not saying that person who is asking is looking for an out as though they're planning on doing that. But if a person does that, then this, they need to still work on themselves. Like, these questions will actually reveal to you where that person is within the scope of that thing. Number 4 is conflict. And I know we talked about conflict, but this one is more along the lines of how do you approach it? Because sometimes what you'll find is that some will struggle in the space of conflict. They're open to resolving it, but I'm not going to make the first move because I think I was right, or I know I was right, or whatever the case may be, or they're conditioned to not make the first move. If that person approaches them, then they'll open up and have that conversation. So do you feel that somebody needs to approach you first in order for conflict to be resolved? And then, of course, like I said, the money talk. Statistically speaking, money is within the top 3 of relationships ending. So if you do not have the money talk, you're literally setting yourself up for failure. And so we got to have the money talk. Like, how do you view, like, do you have a plan when it comes down to money, or do you just go to work, get paid, and you spend your money? You may invest, that's fine, but what is your long-term plan? Are your goals in your life, is it linked to your financial plan? And if not, then, well, that's another thing. So those are my 5: faith, love and commitment, forgiveness, conflict resolution, and money matters.
Oh, I'm done. I don't got nothing else to add to it. But what I will say is I want to go through y'all have some great ones. So if you're in the chat, or if you're listening to this, if you didn't write them down, then you're missing out, because y'all just had, you just got a whole bunch of good things and conversations that you can have with somebody before you decide to, not before you decide, but a conversation that you should probably have before you get in a relationship. And if you are in a relationship, maybe go back and revisit some of these things. Nothing wrong with going back, doing the check on learning, seeing where you are in your relationship, but I want to go through the chat real quick before we roll out, because I don't want y'all, I want to put y'all out there. Y'all spend a couple of minutes, y'all been with us all night, and you took the time to write something in the chat. So I want to acknowledge y'all. And there was some good ones in here too. Lisa Key started off with what does your faith mean to you? Understanding how he lives out his faith. Then after that, we had Michelle Ray, the most important person in the relationship. Who is the most important person in the relationship? That's a good one. We heard about that a whole bunch, while we over here. Abe came along right after that and said, what role should extended family play in the relationship? Appreciate you for Abe for that. Abe got another one with how are we going to stay connected while maintaining our independence? Brittany Jane, how do you prioritize your relationship? That's a good one too. Not saying that any of them are not good. Some of them stand out to me more than others. That's all. Crystal Everett, who your people? But that's a good one though. That was a good one. Michelle Ray, are you dating to marry? Being intentional with your relationship, I think is very important too. Michelle Ray, is there a time limit on how long we are in this relationship before we place expectations on marriage? I think that's very good, important conversation to have before you get married. Empowering Perspective Podcast, who your people is. You know what I mean? But that's real talk. You better ask and don't end up dating your cousin. Last thing you want to do is be sitting on the couch with somebody in the mail come in and she got the same invitation to the family reunion that you got. I'm just saying, I ain't never been there, but I don't think I want to be in that situation. So appreciate all y'all for joining in the chat and being with us this evening. I'm not going to close us out, but I'm going to say my last piece, and then I'm going to let Coach plug in anything that he want to add to the show, as far as other shows and topics and different things like that. So I just want to say again, I appreciate all y'all gentlemen, telling y'all publicly, I really appreciate y'all. Whenever you lead in the show, it's always good to have good conversations and people who can and have the conversation. So I appreciate y'all for every word that y'all said today. Appreciate the chat for being with us. We know it's Friday night. Y'all could be anywhere, but you guys chose to be with us tonight. So appreciate you. Appreciate every word that was typed in the chat. Make sure before y'all roll out, hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of those different things. Coach, I'm pass the ball over to you.
All right, man. I greatly appreciate it. Hey, just want to put out there and remind everybody we got a lot going on this weekend. Tomorrow morning we got a community meeting at 09:30. So make sure that you follow the link and sign up and make sure that we're there. Immediately following, we also have a webinar that starts at 10:30, The Secret to the Purpose-Driven Life. So again, make sure that you're showing up for that one as well. It will be great to see your smiling faces as we go through these talking points. Then, of course, Sunday morning at 11:30, we have Sunday brunch on TikTok, led by that young man right there. It's always going to be a great conversation at the backyard barbecue. That's what I call TikTok. So everybody come out there and have fun and enjoy ourselves. As far as admin stuff, I think that's about it. Don't forget, click it's still pinned to the top of YouTube. Get your free download. So everybody make sure you click on that and get your free download for this conversation, because again, it builds based upon the conversation that we had this evening. So that being said, that's all I have. Am I closing us out? You closing us out or me? Okay. That being said, I'm gonna echo what Unc said. I greatly appreciate everybody present, everybody on the panel, everybody in the chats, everybody in the chats. I greatly appreciate you. You guys are adding a lot of value, lots of value. Oh yeah, I forgot Bible study. Thank you, Crystal. Bible study Sunday at 2 on TikTok as well. And you can find that on TikTok. It's you go find my icon, _mindset_coach. And then you just hit the subscription, and then that will make it possible for you to join the Bible study. I'm leaving it open for not open. I'm leaving a preview zone for the first couple of weeks, but then afterwards the previews turn off. So I'm just putting that out there. But Nonetheless, again, as always, we greatly appreciate you guys being here, spending time with us. You could be any place else on Friday night, but we value your presence being here, and we don't take it lightly. That being said, you guys have a great rest of your evening. For those who are going to join us in the morning, we'll see you in the morning. For everybody else who's not going to join us for the rest of the weekend, you guys have a phenomenal weekend, and don't forget to let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else.